My kid is cute and a genius," Nick said. "He is my old friend who ran off with my fiancée 10 years ago." Reuniting after a long time, he started boasting as if he had completely forgotten the past. "What? Did I say I was single?" I replied casually. Nick looked at me as if he was about to burst into laughter. "You're single, right? I know you well, no need to pretend." Feeling pity for Nick, who assumed I was single, I said with a smile, "I'll introduce you to my daughter." At that moment, Nick turned pale upon seeing my daughter. "My name is Mac Johnson. I just turned 40 this year. A decade ago, I had a fiancée. Her name is Lily. We met at a singles party organized by the city. I remember that I have an impression she was a serious woman when I met her for the first time. While having a conversation, we soon found out we both loved movies and hit it off, exchanging contact information. Our relationship progressed smoothly, and I asked her out soon after. Because we both were introvert, we could hit it off and enjoy our time together. Lily often smiled, saying she found comfort in my calm nature. We started living together with almost no arguments, and also we've done greeting each other's parents. Our homes were nearby in the same city, so it seemed that our parents got along well. Though we could see each other whenever we wanted because we lived nearby, living together on the premise of marriage was truly enjoyable. I also missed that I relished happiness to come back home living together with loved ones at that time. A year into living together, Lily celebrated our anniversary modestly. I couldn't help but propose to her on the spot. I didn't prepare for anything beforehand and just followed my heart, saying, "I want to be with you forever." After that, once I came to my sense, I felt really embarrassed. I was relieved when she smiled shyly and agreed, saying,
"Yes, I'll be with you for the rest of my life."
That ordinary day became the best day of my life. From then on, the preparations went smoothly, and things such as meeting the two families and planning the wedding went off without a hitch at a rapid pace. Lily and I had talked about registering our marriage after the wedding, and we were looking forward to that day. Everyone around us sincerely congratulated us, and especially my best friend Nick was too excited more than me that other friends teased him because of it. Nick was a best friend since high school, and it was also him who invited me to the singles party where I met Lily. He was a popular person who was bright, has a leadership and was loved by everyone. Nick was always surrounded by people, both men and women, and was very popular. If he didn't invite me to the party at that time, my life would be different. Nick was also concerned about us regarding the preparations for the wedding, and joined Lily and I in the meeting with the wedding venue. Nick supported me in a variety of situations, such as adjusting the size of the venue and the number of guests, and encouraging me when I was nervous before getting married. Thanks to that, I was able to make perfect preparations for the wedding. The day before the wedding, I finished work and went home as usual. I had some paid leave from tomorrow's wedding to the end of my honeymoon, so I stayed at the office until quite late to finish up my tasks. But it was strange that when I thought I'd become husband and wife with Lily from tomorrow, my tiredness and heavy body felt lighter. I opened the entrance door, being excited to start my life with Lily. I called out, "I'm home. Lily." I expected Lily to be waiting, but the lights were off. From the entrance, I could tell the place was eerily empty. Stepping inside wondering, I noticed some furniture was missing. The cupboard Lily loved and her dresser were gone. Seeing the scene, I initially thought we were burglarized. Especially since her jewelry and credit cards were missing, I had no doubt it was even more a burglar, but then I realized something odd. Because the burglar didn't steal my credit cards, which were still there. If it were a burglar, they'd have taken mine too, or everything of value. No, I'm sure they'll uproot and take away anything valuable. It was also strange that there were no signs that the room was ransacked other than missing some valuables. I became anxious and worried about the fact Lily, who should be at home at night, was not at home. I called her immediately, but she never answered. She'd never stayed out without telling me, so I was beside myself with worry. Wondering if she went back to her parents' house, I called them. But they hadn't heard from her either. In the end, I couldn't sleep a wink that night, and next morning came. While thinking we originally supposed to welcome the day of our wedding joyfully, I headed to the venue for the time being. Because I thought she perhaps arrived first. On the way, I got a call from Nick's parents. Apparently, they couldn't reach him either. Because the timing was unlikely more than a coincidence, my bad thoughts was getting increasing in my mind. I also called Nick, but like Lily, he didn't answer, and eventually the phone was turned off. While listening to the answer of the voicemail, I waited endlessly for their contact at the venue, but in vain. The wedding was called off. Lily's parents and I had to explain and apologize to the guests. We just had a meal and sent everyone home. After that, I spent days in a daze, lacking the motivation to do anything in our now empty apartment. I had time off for the honeymoon, so I didn't need to go to work. I didn't go out of my room and didn't even look at the mailbox, but as my vacation was coming to an end, I realized that I couldn't continue like this, so I started thinking. As I was cleaning up the large amount of flyers and letters that overflowed from my mailbox, I came across a postcard. I found a postcard addressed to me from Lily and Nick. The moment I saw their names lined up, I could imagine involuntarily what they wrote on the postcard. On the back of the postcard, as I feared, it said they had eloped on our wedding day. According to the postcard, they grew close during the wedding preparations and couldn't hold back their feelings, and then ended up deciding to disappear on the wedding day. Nick had been interested in Lily since the party and asked me imprudently to forgive her. The postcard said Lily took her belongings she needs but left the rest of the appliances as a farewell gift, showing they felt no remorse. The postcard had no return address, and the postmark was blurred from recent rain. I regretted not checking the mailbox sooner, but there seemed no way to track them down. I reached out to our mutual friends at random, but no one knew where they were. On the contrary, everyone was shocked that they had such a relationships, and then cheered me up. I gave up because there was nothing I could do anymore, so I eventually informed Lily's, Nick's, and my parents about the postcard. My folks tried to cheer me up, saying, "You've been through a lot." Lily's and Nick's parents rushed to my apartment, apologizing profusely. Both of their parents knelt down in front of me and apologized, and I kept apologizing to my parents who were with me at the time. They offered to cover the wedding and honeymoon cancellation fees, which was a relief as I hadn't thought about it. The only silver lining was that my marital status remained unchanged. Because we planned to register the marriage after the ceremony. I was grateful I didn't become a divorcee. After that, I immediately moved out of that apartment filled with bad memories. My parents asked if I wanted to move back to their home, but I refused, wanting to forget the past and start anew. On the day I left the apartment, I stepped forward that I could finally leave those painful memories behind. 10 years later, I was having my favorite coffee in a hotel lounge. Then, someone suddenly approached me. Turning around, I saw a man standing at the hotel entrance. He looked flashy. In a word, he was vulgar. At first glance, he might have passed for wealthy, but a closer look revealed his watch and shoes were scuffed and worn, his clothes frayed at the cuffs and hem. He looked older than me due to his attire, but he might actually be around my age. As I pondered this, the man confidently approached and called out to me again.
"Mac, is that you? Long time no see. Who are you?"
I asked.
"What? You don't remember me?"
He replied.
"I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank."
I genuinely couldn't recognize him, so I asked him back. Then, frowning, he dropped a name I never expected.
"It's me, Nick." "You forgot your own best friend?"
"Nick?
"No way. I never thought we'd meet you in a place like this. After all, this is a luxury hotel."
Looking closer, I recognized traces of my old friend. It was indeed Nick. But the appearance was so shabby that it couldn't be compared to those days, and if I hadn't been told, I would have thought it was a different person. I was shocked at how much a person could change in 10 years. And above all, I was surprised that he suddenly talked to me arrogantly when I met him for the first time in a long time. While we had gotten along together, he wasn't a type of person who is arrogant.
"Sorry, it's been 10 years. I didn't recognize you. Do you come here often?"
I asked.
"Me? Yeah, I come here often." "Wait a minute. You come here too? No way you can afford a place like this."
Nick said. He maybe thought I was telling a lie. He stared at me suspiciously, which was unpleasant, but I kept my composure.
"I come here sometimes. It's quiet and the service is good."
Even after my explanation, Nick crossed his arms and looked at me doubtfully. Apparently, he was unhappy with the idea of me using this hotel. We talked briefly, and it seemed he had completely forgotten the events of 10 years ago. Or perhaps he assumed time had healed all wounds. I had nearly forgotten too, but the pain from that time remained. Nick, oblivious to my feelings, started bragging one-sidedly again. I didn't have a chance to butt in his boast that was keeping rambling on, and when I had no choice but hearing, a young girl chased after him into the hotel. She was a little girl with a cute face, but because she couldn't cope with the atmosphere of the hotel, so she seemed uncomfortable and fidgeting. Nick didn't even hold her hands, but instead of that, he proudly looked at me.
"By the way, Mac, are you still single at 40? My daughter here is cute and a genius. She recently joined a modeling agency, and she's studying for private school exams. She's got a lot on her plate."
It seemed like the girl was his daughter. It's true that her face was well organized and cute, but she looked so nervous that she was worried. She looked tired, like she was abandoned while walking with her parents. Moreover, she was perhaps overwhelmed by modeling and school pressures. But Nick continued his boast without concern for her.
"Raising a kid is tough. But you, a single guy, wouldn't understand." "What? Did I say I was single?"
I responded casually, to which Nick almost burst out laughing.
"Of course, you're single. A guy living alone in a small apartment can't get a girlfriend. I know you well, no need for pretenses."
With my words, I could see that he got angry a little while laughing at me. I start to feel sorry for Nick, who automatically assumes I'm single and keeps repeating his own boasts, only to get angry all over again. Nick was getting angry, and the volume of his voice was getting louder and louder. His voice echoed in the lounge of the quiet hotel, and the eyes around me were flickering at me, and I thought for a while what to do. Then, my daughter and wife approached me in that awkward atmosphere, holding hands.
Dad, what's going on? We could hear you talking from over there.
"Nick, let me introduce you to my daughter and wife.
Suddenly introduced to my family, Nick turned pale the moment he saw my daughter.
What? Your daughter and wife? No way. She's cuter than any pop stars around here. She doesn't look anything like you, Mac. Oh. I thought you knew me well.
I replied, surprised by his reaction. I explained to the bewildered Nick. My wife has a well-proportioned face. Our daughter, who inherited the wife's blood, is also blessed with a lovely appearance. Not just that, my wife's family is exceptionally talented. Her father and siblings graduated top of their class from prestigious universities. Later, they started up the business and become executives and was active in the front line. My daughter also seemed to like studying just like my wife, and my wife taught her how to study every day.
And speaking of school exams, it's really tough. Our daughter just got her acceptance to a private elementary school last week. Wait, the private school that announced its admissions last week is...
Nick's face grew paler rapidly as he heard my words. He was also just letting his child take the elementary school entrance exam, and he seemed to be well aware of the acceptance announcement date. There was only one school that announced its admission. Besides, the school was top-tier and exclusive. In the first place, my daughter had also attended its affiliated kindergarten. Because she got an excellent grade there too, so teachers took her elementary school admission for granted if her excellent grade would be stable. Because Nick realized he couldn't beat me about children's education, he desperately seemed to start looking for faults in me. My wife tilted her head while Nick was saying something meaningless.
Mac? Who is this person?
Oh, just an old acquaintance. We lost touch due to certain circumstances.
While I was talking with my wife, Nick was blinking his eyes in shock. Because my wife and I were talking in French. My wife, who is so-called a returnee, naturally slips into French. I majored in French in college, so we had often spoken both French and English at home. Even though I've known Nick since high school, I'd never bragged him about my fluency in French. That's probably why he was surprised that I suddenly seemed to start speaking French. After moving from my old apartment, I joined a new business venture at my company. There was news that the company was going to do business overseas, and after I heard that the local official language was French, I ran for the new position because I wanted to challenge the new environment. It was a tough project but fulfilling, helping me forget the betrayal by my best friend and fiancé. That's when I met my current wife. She gave me a lot of love lavishly, so I also tried to meet her expectations. Because I broke up with Lily, my life took a positive turn. While chatting with my wife, Nick, who was completely ignored by us, suddenly erupted in anger.
No way your wife is this gorgeous. Something is wrong. She's the famous, stunning model CEO, often in the media, right? I've seen her and your daughter on the cover of parenting magazines.
Like all members of my wife's family, my wife is also the president of a company she started. And her beautiful appearance has also become popular in US, and she is a little celebrity who is often featured in the media as a president and model.
And how come you, Mac, can speak foreign languages so well? What language are you even speaking? It's French. Enough, enough.
Nick shouted, visibly upset. His outburst frightened both my daughter and his, as they looked on in fear.
I can't accept this. Why does Mac live a better life than me? You were supposed to be my sidekick. It's infuriating that you're more fortunate than me.
Nick is complaining to me all the time, making incomprehensible arguments. It seems that my best friend, who I thought was cheerful and reliable, had been looking down on me for a long time. Even at the singles party where I met my fiancé, Nick was probably using me as a foil. Even so, I ended up getting married first, and Nick felt like he had lost, so maybe he thought of stealing my fiancée. I was watching the situation without saying, but my wife, unable to overlook the situation, spoke up calmly.
The children are frightened, and we're causing a disturbance in the hotel. I don't know what relation you had with my husband, but I won't tolerate insults towards him.
Surprised by her firm stance, Nick stopped yelling, wordlessly gaping. After it settled the situation down, he noticed that people were staring at him coldly. Feeling cornered, while raising an unspeakable moan, Nick began to kick and thrash the hotel furnishings like sofas and plants in frustration. Watching Nick's behavior like a child had a tantrum, I was both appalled and unable to intervene. His violent outburst was so intense that attempting to stop him seemed likely to cause injury. Besides, protecting the children nearby would be a priority. Children are innocents, so I decided to protect Nick's daughter with my daughter. After that, the hotel staff seemed to have contacted, and after a while, the police arrived. Nick was caught by several officers, resisting and pointing at me until the end.
It's not my fault. Mac has been making a fool of me.
However, the bystanders had witnessed his entire rampage, and nobody blamed me. The hotel staff explained the situation to the police, who then took Nick away. His daughter, unable to be left alone at the hotel, was taken to the police station with him. It was a pitiful sight, but there was nothing more I could do. I watched as Nick was taken away making a fuss, and his daughter followed her father with no expression on her face. After that, Nick was unable to contact his wife, Lily, and apparently caused considerable trouble for the police. Later, I learned from my family that Nick and Lily, his wife, were in the midst of divorce proceedings. The main reason was his infidelity. Lily had left him, fed up with his behavior. The police, unable to keep Nick's daughter at the police station and unable to contact Lily, reached out to Nick's parents, who agreed to take her in. I was contacted later by Nick's parents, but even though he caused a lot of trouble 10 years ago, I received an apology for causing trouble again. I felt really sorry for his parents who apologized to me instead of Nick, and I was stunned by Nick who didn't reflect even if he let his parents go that far. After a while, I was informed by Nick's parents that they divorced officially. His actions at the hotel likely influenced the final decision. Nick tried to rely on his parents afterward but was refused and attempted to move in with his mistress, only to find she had moved away without notice. Now it seems that he is moving from one cheap boarding house to another while working on a daily contract for living. Lily, on the other hand, is living in a small apartment, relying on welfare. Even now, it seems that she's lived an unstable life by making new lovers and breaking up repeatedly. It seems that they have no intention of keeping their daughter and have decided to leave her to be raised by Nick's parents. It seems that Lily did not have much love for her daughter, perhaps because she was suffering from Nick's infidelity. When she asked the girl herself if she wanted to live with her parents, she just shook her head, and apparently she didn't say that she wanted to go back to Nick or Lily. After that, Nick's parents took great care of her granddaughter, and eventually she began to show a cute smile befitting her age. Every time our family returned to my parents' house, we were concerned about what was going on, so we went to Nick's parents' house to check on their daughter. Nick's daughter has now grown into a healthy girl and has become very good friends with my daughter. I think this is a good thing for them because every time I see them, they laugh and play together happily. As for me, I work hard without a hitch after that. My relationship with my wife is stronger than ever, and we recently found out we're expecting our second child," she said excitedly and joyfully.
I'll be a wonderful sister.
When I told her she'll have her sibling soon. Feeling the baby move in response to my touch on my wife's growing belly, I'm reminded of the precious life we're about to welcome. My hope is for our family to continue living peacefully and cherish every moment together. It was sudden. As I stood there bewildered, she hit me with a follow-up.
I realized it's little different. Luckily, we weren't married, so I guess it's a lucky escape.
My heart rate skyrocketed. Who is this person? Was my girlfriend always like this? Am I having a bad dream? My mind was racing, but to her, I probably just looked like my usual spaced-out self.
Let's end our relationship,
she said. It felt like watching the blade of a guillotine falling down on me. That's all she said before she took the bill and left. I desperately kept staring at her retreating figure. Her straight, stretched back never looked back at me once. My name is Michael Bowman. I experienced a major heartbreak about 6 months ago. The girl I was dating then was the daughter of a vice president. We met when I helped her find her way to deliver something her father had forgotten. I had always admired her for being beautiful and caring about her dad, but I thought she was out of my league. A few days later, she brought me homemade cookies as a thank you, and on a whim, I asked for her contact info. Maybe it was a whim for her too, but she gave it to me, and that's how our communication started. There were many memories, like our awkward dates and my desperate confessions, but miraculously, we started dating. We were even discussing marriage. What kind of family we'd build, kids, a house. We talked a lot about the future. But around the time we were introducing each other to our parents, she started acting strange. She often looked gloomy and downcast. I was concerned, but I thought maybe it was just cold feet. I believed she would talk to me if something was wrong, and I was ready to do anything for her. But she made a completely different decision.
I'm marrying someone else.
If anyone could come up with a clever response to that from their soon-to-be married partner, I'd like to meet them. In the end, I could do nothing but watch her leave in shock. Then, her wedding invitation arrived. It felt like a final blow, but I couldn't just skip the wedding of the vice president's daughter, so I reluctantly attended. My heart was deeply stabbed. She looked like an angel in her wedding dress. Had she lost some weight since the last time I saw her? Thinking she was supposed to be beside me in that dress made my heart ache. I wished my heart would just stop during the ceremony so maybe it would get called off. Such pathetic, lingering thoughts made me shake my head. It was just before the ceremony. I bumped into her when I was returning from the restroom to the guest seats. It was a complicated feeling. "Congratulations," I managed to say. For someone like me, I think I did really well. It was an all-out performance that I may achieve an Academy Award. But she said,
I didn't expect you to come. Just leave your tiny gift and go. You don't have to stay.
That was the moment my long-held love completely cooled off. Was I that disliked? Feeling dejected and hurt, I couldn't even look at her face and was about to turn on my heel. When suddenly, a voice came from behind.
Then let's go home, dear.
There stood a woman, beautiful like a porcelain doll. I was stunned, not understanding what was happening. The woman took my hand and whispered to me,
Play along, okay?
With those words, I realized it wasn't a case of mistaken identity. For now, I went along and took her hand. At that moment, my ex-girlfriend's expression changed drastically. Her face turned pale, and she stood there dumbfounded. Her mouth opened and closed repeatedly, gaping. Then I heard her mutter faintly.
A new lover.
As I stood there puzzled, tears started to overflow from my ex-girlfriend's eyes. Realizing this, she quickly turned her back and ran off. As I was about to chase after her, the beautiful woman pulled my hand tightly. "Let go," I demanded.
First, let me explain what's happening.
The woman said, her piercing gaze making me regain some composure. Indeed, chasing after her would be pointless. I decided to listen to the woman. She led me to the vice president. "Hello, Mr. Bowman." He greeted me. I asked, bewildered. "What's going on?" The vice president explained. Apparently, during our first meeting, his wife, who came from a family of public servants, didn't approve of me and pressured my girlfriend to reconsider our marriage. However, my girlfriend, caring for me, refused. This angered the vice president's wife. She then arranged an engagement with someone from a well-off family and threatened my girlfriend.
Marry this man, or your boyfriend's career will be jeopardized.
My wife comes from a noble lineage and had a hard time marrying into my family. You know, being the chairman's daughter and all. I couldn't confront her directly, but seeing my daughter, Catherine, so distressed, I couldn't stand by and do nothing. That's why I arranged this meeting," he said. Everything started to make sense to me. Why she suddenly became cold, her gloomy expressions. We had talked many times about our future. How I loved my job. Took pride in it. Wanted to educate my juniors, involve my seniors, and provide something better for people. She always supported me.
That's wonderful. I'll support you all the way. Once you climb the ladder high enough, make sure to achieve it.
She'd say. So, the threat to my career must have been unbearable for her. I was foolish. She was sacrificing herself to protect me, and I didn't realize it, playing the victim instead.
"I want to be with Catherine after all,"
I said after some hesitation, looking up. The vice president nodded in agreement. I ran. At the end of the venue, leading outside, Catherine stood there, clutching her chest. "Catherine!" I called out to her. Catherine looked up, startled.
"Are you okay?"
Asking her, she took a deep breath and said,
Me? I'm fine. I'm getting married and will be happy. I'm marrying someone wealthy, from a distinguished and honorable family. So.
She trailed off, her eyes wandering. How did I not notice? She always put up this brave front, pushing me away to protect me. I embraced her trembling, slender shoulders.
Let go.
Only a vocal resistance came back.
"I'm sorry."
I apologized to myself. In my arms, she took another deep breath, exhaled slowly, and clutched my shirt. I felt her tears soaking my chest as I gently patted her back.
Must be looking terrible now.
How long did we stay like that? She finally looked up, cleared. With a smile I loved.
Did you hear about it?
She asked, and I nodded. I opened my mouth. Even if I'm a bit slow, I'd regret it forever if I didn't say it now.
"I love you, Catherine. That's true no matter what. Maybe you thought you'd hold me back, but all I need is your smile. It gives me all the courage I need."
Hearing this, Catherine cried a little, almost annoyed.
You're making me cry again.
In the end, the wedding was called off. No one could say anything to a bride with red, swollen eyes. The wedding where the most blessed person was in tears couldn't proceed. It became a bit of a topic among everyone. Time passed since then.
How have you been lately?
I turned around to the voice. Right. The beautiful woman from that time was Ms. Miller from HR. I was surprised how different she looked with makeup.
I'm doing okay, I guess.
I've been promoted from senior manager to department head. Depending on the outcome of this project, I might become the assistant director next term. I've gotten to know Ms. Miller since that incident and we chat occasionally. Having a friend in HR is beneficial for development. And she cares about my mother-in-law.
It must be tough, the vice president's wife. She was really like a princess. Married without even knowing how to cook rice. Lucky she married the laid-back VP.
I'm impressed with her knowledge on the internal affairs and the information network she has. She seems so modest and quiet usually, but who is she really? I properly talked to my mother-in-law only recently. I want to marry Catherine. I told her. I was nervous. I thought she had a negative view of me. But the outcome was different. She was just worried about Catherine. She married a regular guy from a prestigious family and still struggled a lot. She panicked when introduced to me, an ordinary guy, fearing Catherine might struggle the same or more. She shared all this with me.
I'm sorry. I always saw her as a little child.
She said, bowing her head, making me rush to reassure her. I realized she hadn't had an issue with me but was concerned about the difference in values stemming from mine and Catherine's upbringing. Honestly, I was relieved. I was expecting something worse, but then I remembered, she raised Catherine. She couldn't be that bad.
I will definitely make her happy.
I said earnestly, and she replied.
Yes, please do.
Her smile, so much like Catherine's, made me sincerely want to be a good man for her. We decided not to have a wedding ceremony after all.
I think I'm cursed when it comes to ceremonies.
Catherine said seriously, frowning, and I couldn't help but laugh, even though I knew I shouldn't. After getting a bit angry at my laughter, she softly said,
At least it's a laughing matter now.
Hearing that filled my heart.
Really, we've been through a lot.
I said it, half out of gratitude for our ability to talk about the future again, half out of embarrassment.
Don't dump me again, okay?
I teased her, and she playfully nudged me, a bit annoyed. The ring on her finger was shining. Whatever the future holds, we'll face it together. If we're together, we can overcome anything. I took Catherine's hand and embraced her. Her arms wrapped around my back. Outside the window, a refreshing blue sky spread wide. Tomorrow, we're going to submit our marriage registration. The breeze fluttered the curtains, gently caressing our cheeks.